First thing I saw was Foolio laid up. I thought it was a car accident until I looked up, saw the bullet holes, and I saw Zay covered in blood yelling.
Tears streamed down faces as the courtroom filled with raw emotion. Julio's cousin took the stand, his voice cracking as he struggled to relive those final haunting moments. The room froze when he revealed Julio's last words before collapsing, words that hit like a gut punch. But it was what he confessed next that truly stunned everyone. Even the judge sat in disbelief. The tension was thick, the silence heavy. On October 22nd, 2025, you could practically hear every heartbeat in that Hillsborough County courtroom in Tampa, Florida. This wasn't just another trial. It was a day carved deep into memory. A day where pain and truth clashed in the harsh spotlight of a murder case that had gripped the nation, exposing the dark crossroads between drill rap, street beefs, and real-life tragedy that had plagued Jacksonville for over a decade. The man on the stand was Valonia Norris, Julio Foolio's cousin, real name Charles Andrew Jones. But Norris wasn't just any witness, he was a survivor, one of the few who lived through that violent ambush on June 23, 2021, when mass shooters emerged from the shadows of a Tampa hotel parking lot and opened fire on their black Dodge Charger. Prosecutors later called it a scene straight out of hell, and Norris had been right there in the middle of it. Now, more than a year later, he sat before the jury, cameras flashing, forced to relive every second of that nightmare. His voice trembled, shaking under the weight of memories no one should have to carry. Each word painted a picture of fear, chaos, and heartbreak. And in that moment, everyone in the courtroom knew they weren't just hearing testimony, they were witnessing pain so real it echoed through every corner of the room. This wasn't about some cold, emotionless retelling of events. No way. This was raw, it was heavy, and it cut deep. Norris started describing the scene inside that black Dodge Charger with Julio and the crew, just hours after a wild night of partying. It was supposed to be a celebration for Julio's 26th birthday, a night of good vibes and laughter. But instead, it turned into the night that would take his life forever.
So you fell asleep after that, after he came back to the car, or you started dozing?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember being woken up at some point, or woke up?
Yes, I think when the car hit, I don't remember exactly what it hit, but the car hit something that woke me up.
The confusion in those first few seconds must have been pure chaos. Imagine being jolted awake, your head spinning, still half asleep, and the first thing you feel is that something's terribly wrong. Norris told the court he first thought they'd been in a car crash. His brain tried to make sense of it. Maybe a collision, maybe an accident, something normal. But then reality hit him like a freight train. As his vision cleared, what he saw ripped away any hope that this was just a crash. He couldn't even process what happened to his cousin yet, because the scene around him was a nightmare come to life. When he looked up, expecting twisted metal or a smashed windshield, what he saw instead were bullet holes, dozens of them. The car wasn't wrecked from a crash. It was shredded by gunfire like something out of a war zone. That's when it hit him. This wasn't random. This was an ambush, a setup, a full-on execution meant to end lives. Every shot fired had purpose. Every second felt planned. Norris's voice cracked as he described the chaos, the sound, the panic, and then came the image that stuck with everyone, Xavier Za. Edwards, the driver, drenched in blood, screaming for help. The courtroom fell silent again as he relived that horror, moment by moment, unable to escape the memory of that night.
Norris described seeing him covered in blood, yelling.
Xavier Edwards?
Yes.
You saw him covered in blood?
Yes.
All right, so let me talk to you about Xavier Edwards. I don't know if we talked about him yet. So Xavier Edwards was also there at the clubs with you all?
Yes.
And he was driving the Dodge Charger coming from the clubs to the hotel?
Yes.
As the prosecutor kept pressing with questions, asking Norris to explain his own injuries, the full horror of that night finally came to light. Piece by piece, the courtroom started to understand just how close he came to losing his life and how brutally random the attack really was.
Is he saying anything at that point?
Yes, he was yelling.
What was he yelling? And you can say exactly what he said.
Yes, he was yelling like, shit.
Bullets don't choose targets. They tear through metal and flesh with no mercy, no warning, no sense of justice. It's chaos at its purest form, cold, blind, and unstoppable. Norris told the jury he had been lying on his side, half asleep when it all went down, defenseless, unaware, and completely exposed. Then, out of nowhere, one bullet ripped through his arm near the shoulder. When the prosecutor asked softly if he still had a scar, his quiet yes spoke louder than anything else that day. That scar wasn't just on his skin, it was carved into his memory, a reminder he can never escape. Every time he looks in the mirror, every time someone asks, that mark drags him right back to that parking lot, to that car, to the deafening sound of gunfire and fear. The prosecutor then showed him photos from the hospital, his body hooked up to machines, weak, broken, barely alive. That was the breaking point. Norris's voice cracked, and the strength he'd held on to through the testimony shattered. Tears poured down as the weight of everything he'd survived finally crushed through the wall he'd tried so hard to keep up. The emotional wall Norris had built finally shattered. All that pain, grief, and buried trauma came rushing out right there in front of everyone. He couldn't hold it in any longer. The memories were too heavy, too real. Seeing this, the judge quickly stepped in, realizing the witness needed space, needed air, needed a break from the pain he was being forced to relive. A brief recess was called, a small act of compassion in the middle of an emotional storm. The jury was let out, giving Norris a few quiet moments to pull himself together, to wipe away his tears, and to try rebuilding the strength that had just crumbled. Sitting there, clutching tissues, trying to steady his breathing, he looked like a man carrying the entire weight of a city's pain on his shoulders. Every scar, every tear told a story that no words could truly capture. Valonia Norris wasn't just another name on the witness list. He was the human cost of street violence. A young man who had watched his own cousin die, who had stared death in the face himself, and who now carried wounds that would never fully heal. What he described in court wasn't just one night of tragedy, it was the breaking point of years of escalating bloodshed. A feud turned into folklore through drill rap and social media, songs, posts, and diss tracks that kept the cycle alive. To truly grasp the power of Norris's testimony, you have to understand Julio Foolio's world, the dangerous rivalry that made him famous, and ultimately, the one that took his life. Let's rewind for a second and break down what really went down in 2023. The setup, the trap, the cold-blooded ambush. What happened on June 23rd, 2024 didn't just explode out of nowhere. This wasn't random street chaos or bad timing, this was planned. Prosecutors called it a display of violence with tactical precision, and they weren't exaggerating. Every move that night was part of a bigger plan, one that had been put in motion long before the first shot echoed through that Tampa parking lot. To understand it, you have to go back to the hours before the gunfire, the surveillance, the quiet coordination, the setup. Court footage laid it all out like a movie, showing Julio's final hours in haunting detail. Around 4:30 a.m., cameras caught him at the Home 2 Suites Hotel in Tampa, rocking a red stocking cap, adjusting his shorts, walking up to the front desk, asking about a room. He had been out celebrating his 26th birthday, clubs, shows, good vibes, just living his life. But what he didn't know was that while he was trying to book a room, eyes were already on him. His every move was being tracked, his location pinned, his time quietly running out. The video fast-forwarded, minutes passing, then boom, something eerie slid into the frame, a car pulling up. The prosecutor's voice dropped as they pointed to the screen saying, "That car right there, that's the assault team." Not just some random car cruising by, not a coincidence. The assault team, a crew that had driven all the way from Jacksonville to Tampa with one mission: to end Julio's life. Their movement showed they knew exactly what they were doing. The way they circled around the north side of the hotel, staying out of sight, avoiding Julio's line of vision. It wasn't sloppy or impulsive. It was cold, calculated, and deadly. They weren't rushing in wild. They were careful, cold, and strategic, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This wasn't some crime of passion or spur-of-the-moment beef. This was methodical. Every move screamed planning and patience. As the footage rolled, another car pulled into view, a Nissan Altima belonging to Julio's entourage. Behind the wheel was TFA McCrae, and with him, his girlfriend, Aaliyah Albritton. They stepped inside the lobby to use the restroom, just two people doing something completely normal, clueless about the storm creeping up outside. While they were gone, Kamia Bentley, another friend of Julio's, slid into the driver's seat to keep the car running. She had no idea she'd soon be fighting for her life. Minutes later, she'd take a bullet straight through her arm, but somehow survived the massacre. The courtroom went dead silent as the prosecutor narrated what was coming next. The moment everything turned fatal, the screen froze on the footage just seconds before the attack. That's how close Julio was to losing everything. Mere seconds. Then the video resumed. The Chevy Cruze from the assault team's convoy rolled into frame, moving with purpose like they'd done this before, and then it happened. The eruption of gunfire. In the lower corner of the screen, one of the shooters could be seen with an automatic Glock unleashing chaos. Inside the Dodge Charger, Xavier "Zaw" Edwards, the driver, slammed the gas, trying desperately to escape the kill zone. Every frame told the story of precision, panic, and pure terror. Xavier "Zaw" Edwards was fighting for their lives, slamming the gas, swerving, desperate to escape the rain of bullets tearing through the night. The gunfire was nonstop, chaos everywhere. But then came one of the most shocking pieces of evidence, and it didn't come from police or security cameras. It came from a Tesla, a random Tesla parked at a charging station, its Sentry mode quietly recording everything from multiple angles. That footage changed everything. It caught the third shooter on camera, sprinting behind parked cars, crouching behind a yellow vehicle, and taking position. The video showed in crystal clear detail exactly how the ambush went down, how the shooters spread out, how they trapped the Charger in a deadly crossfire. It wasn't sloppy, it was planned to perfection. Later footage from the Tampa police impound lot showed what was left of Julio's Dodge Charger, riddled with yellow evidence stickers marking every single bullet strike. The hood, the doors, the windshield, there wasn't a single untouched surface. This wasn't a few random shots, this was a barrage. Dozens of rounds fired with one intention: to kill everyone inside that car. When the prosecutor gave their closing remarks on the footage, the courtroom went cold. Their words were chilling. The gunmen acted with suddenness, speed, and fury, with overwhelming firepower. Not one shooter, not two, three, and they weren't playing with handguns. They came armed with high-powered AR-style rifles and a fully automatic Glock 19. The precision, the coordination, it was straight-up military-level execution. The prosecutor didn't call it fire superiority. They called it fire supremacy. That phrase hit hard, showing just how one-sided this ambush really was. Foolio and his crew never stood a chance, not even for a second. But the big question everyone had was, how did police track these guys down? Turns out, in today's world, getting away with a crime like this is nearly impossible, especially when tech is watching from every angle. Even DJ Academics broke it down, saying, "You got Teslas acting like security cameras with 360 vision. It's the clearest footage ever, 4K." And he wasn't lying. That Tesla footage became a key piece of evidence, crystal clear visuals of the shooter's movements from start to finish. But the Tesla clip was just the beginning. Cops pieced together the puzzle using everything: surveillance footage, ring cameras from the suspects' own homes, cell tower data, you name it. One of the suspects even tried to be slick by leaving his phone behind, but investigators still caught on. They subpoenaed phone records from the rest of the crew, and boom, those devices were pinging all the way from Jacksonville to Tampa, right near the crime scene. Then came Alicia Andrews, the so-called spotter. She cracked early, claiming she was just along for the ride with her boyfriend and didn't know what was about to happen. But the digital trail told a different story. License plate readers tracked the convoy's route to and from Tampa. And when police questioned one suspect's mother, she confirmed her son had taken her car that night. Every detail, every signal, every camera, technology built the timeline brick by brick until the whole truth was laid bare. The most chilling piece of evidence came from the ballistics lab, and it sealed the case. One of the shooters, just 18 years old, Sean Gathright, was linked to another shooting. The bullet casings and barrel markings matched perfectly. Imagine that, a kid who, just 5 years earlier, was a 12-year-old gamer streaming online, now described by investigators as a stone-cold killer. The transformation was shocking, and it showed how deep this street cycle really runs. From there, the evidence only stacked higher. Detectives had surveillance footage from inside and outside the hotel. They even pulled Cash App receipts, tracing who paid for gas, food, and even hotel rooms. They found that one suspect's car was breaking down, so another one fronted the money to cover costs. Every small clue, every digital breadcrumb, every move caught on camera, it all locked together like pieces of a puzzle too perfect to deny. The 5 suspects charged in Julio Foolio's murder each played a role in the deadly plot. Alicia Andrews, 21, and Isaiah Chance Jr., 21, were the spotters. The eyes on Julio's every move, feeding his location back to the team. Then there were the shooters, Sean Gathright, 18, Rashad Murphy, 30, and Davian Murphy, 27, the trio who actually pulled the triggers that ended Foolio's life. Because of the danger surrounding the case, the courtroom felt like a fortress. Security was tight, and prosecutors even asked for some witnesses to have their faces hidden from broadcast, just to keep them safe. Every moment of the trial carried tension, the air thick with the reality that this wasn't just about justice, it was about survival. The shadow of retaliation loomed over the courtroom like a storm about to break. Even as the trial moved forward, the gang violence that set the stage for Julio's murder raged on in Jacksonville. To understand why that Tampa hotel parking lot became a killing ground on June 23, 2024, you have to look at a decade-long war, a feud between Julio Foolio's KT6 block gang and their rivals, the TK 1200 crew. This wasn't sudden, it was a powder keg waiting to explode. The conflict started as small beefs and minor street disputes, but snowballed into a full-scale war, claiming dozens of lives and destroying countless families. It spilled out from the streets into social media and drill rap videos, which didn't just document the violence, they glorified it. Every track, every post, every viral clip fed the fire, creating a cycle of revenge that seemed impossible to break. When rapper Boozy heard about Julio's death, his reaction captured the harsh reality of life in the middle of a gang war. "I ain't think nothing. I just think y'all Leo. I mean shit. That's how that go, man. When you at war, that's just how that go." There was no shock, no outrage, just a grim understanding that in this life, this world, death is part of the game. Boozy's words cut to the core of gang strategy. Protect the big dog at all costs, because if the big dog falls, the whole crew crumbles. And in this battle, Julio was the big dog, the leader, the target, the one everyone knew would be hunted. His death wasn't just tragic, it was a predictable outcome of a war that had been raging for years. Julio wasn't just another name in the streets, he was the most visible, the most successful, the top dog in his crew. Taking him out wasn't just revenge for old beefs, it was a calculated strike meant to break the morale of his entire gang. What made it worse was how public he'd been about his plans and whereabouts. Even after surviving earlier attempts on his life, including a shot to the foot, you'd think he'd tighten up, be paranoid, watch his back. But instead, he was posting his birthday party on Instagram, telling people to DM him for details. Every post, every message could be seen by friends or enemies hiding in plain sight. When you announce your location online, you don't know if that DM is coming from someone who wants to celebrate or someone planning to kill you. After Julio's death, the disrespect didn't stop. Youngjin Ace, one of his main rivals, dropped a diss track just hours later, then another a few days after. Even stranger, Julio's Instagram kept posting after he died, someone using his account to respond to rivals as if he were still alive. It was surreal, almost dystopian, a continuation of the beef from beyond the grave. Music played a huge role in this war. Drill rap, the subgenre from Chicago, became the soundtrack of Jacksonville's gang conflict. Artists on both sides used it to flaunt power, mock enemies, and even glorify violence. In this world, every song was a message, every post a weapon, and Julio's story became a chilling example of how street wars now play out online and in music as much as on the streets, bragging about shootings, taunting rivals, and memorializing fallen friends. This wasn't just music or art, it was psychological warfare. Each track added fuel to the fire, making retaliation more likely and escalating tensions. The most notorious example was Young Ace's track I Smoked, which sampled Vanessa Carlton's 1,000 Miles while mocking members of Julio's crew who had already died. The song went viral, racking up tens of millions of views and shining a national spotlight on the Jacksonville gang war. But this wasn't just entertainment, it was a direct provocation, a taunt aimed to mess with Julio and his associates' minds. Julio fired back with his own tracks, including When I See You, filmed at the graves of rivals, keeping the beef alive in the most public, haunting way possible. This back and forth continued for years, each side trying to outdo the other with disrespect. Every diss, every song could spark the next shooting, the next act of revenge. Looking back at Julio's life, it's clear violence was always close. His first shooting at just 15 should have been a wake-up call, but instead, it pulled him deeper into the streets. After spending months relearning to walk from that injury, he tried to return to school, only to be turned away, given no explanation, leaving him with even fewer options than before. Denied access to school and rejected by the system, Julio made a choice. He fully committed to street life. In his own words, whatever chance he had to take a different path vanished in that moment. From there, his life became a cycle of arrests and releases. He He kept getting caught with guns, spending short stints in juvenile detention only to be released again and thrown back onto the streets. It wasn't until he turned 17 that he faced his first serious charge, a moment that captured the reckless bravado of his teenage years. On Christmas, he and his friends rolled into a movie theater parking lot in Orange Park, Florida, flashing guns out the window at anyone they passed. Not long after police spotted them, a brief chase, just 10 or 15 seconds, ended with the group caught with 4 guns in the car. Even then, the consequences were minimal. Foolio, the only juvenile in the car, spent about a month in detention before being released. He admitted that if he had gotten one more gun charge, he would have been sent to a level 8 or level 10 program for up to 2 years. But that didn't happen, at least not yet, and he stayed on the streets. What's undeniable is that social media and streaming platforms paired with drill rap changed the game. Feuds that once might have stayed local now played out online, amplifying conflicts and broadcasting street wars to anyone paying attention, creating a new, dangerous dynamic for gang violence. Now, this conflict isn't just in the streets, it plays out on a global stage, with millions of views, likes, and comments amplifying every insult, every threat, every loss. The pressure to respond, to protect your reputation, to avenge fallen friends grows even heavier when the world is watching. Jacksonville law enforcement has been trying to stay ahead, taking a proactive approach to prevent violence before it erupts. Sheriff T.K. Waters has emphasized targeting known gang members, focusing on stopping attacks before they happen. The arrests in Foolio's case show how modern policing pieces together evidence from every angle: surveillance cameras, cell phone records, license plate readers, social media activity, and even ballistics to build airtight cases. Every move, every message, every signal can be traced and used to bring perpetrators to justice. Court proceedings continue, more witnesses will take the stand, more evidence will be unveiled, and eventually a jury will decide the fate of those responsible. The legal system will do what it is meant to do: determine guilt, assign punishment, and seek justice. But the real cost of gang violence isn't just the lives lost, it's the survivors, carrying the trauma, the memories, the weight of what they saw forever. This isn't just a story about rappers, beefs, or viral diss tracks. It's a harsh glimpse into a world where street life and violence collide with the digital age. This is a story about people, flawed, complicated, shaped by their choices and their environment, whose lives collided on that June night in Tampa with devastating consequences. Valoni Norris couldn't stop crying in the courtroom because he was reliving the worst night of his life. He was confronting images of himself at his most vulnerable. He was remembering his cousin, Foolio, who should still be here, who should have lived to see 27, 30, 40, and beyond. No amount of time, no distance, no moving on can erase what happened. His tears weren't just for Foolio. They were for all the fallen, all the survivors, all the families ripped apart by this unending cycle of violence. They're a reminder that behind the headlines, the courtrooms, and the music videos, there are real people feeling real pain. Until society figures out how to break this cycle, provide alternatives for young people trapped in these situations, and address the root causes, not just the symptoms, there will be more Valonias sitting in witness stands, forced to relive moments that will haunt them forever. What do you think about Foolio's cousin's shocking testimony? Drop your thoughts in the comments and click the cards on your screen for more untold stories behind the headlines.